The conception and birth of Anakin Skywalker has been one of the most controversial elements of Star Wars. We've heard many different explanations as to the birth of Anakin and the purpose of his story in the overall series. In the end, he did destroy the Sith for a time, and himself, Lord Vader at the time, as well as his master Sidious, although Sidious would return. We've gotten a ton of different explanations for the birth of Anakin over the years, some in the old canon of George Lucas, with stories developed beyond Lucas's control, such as the Darth Plagueis novel, which explains that it was actually Palpatine as well as Plagueis who were directly responsible for the birth of Anakin Skywalker. To make a long story short, both Plagueis and Palpatine decided to impose their will on the galaxy and the Force itself, pouring all of their hatred, malice, and contempt into the Force and the galaxy at large. Because the Sith were trying to dominate the Force itself, the Force, in the form of the midichlorians, responded by creating a being with no father that would one day destroy the Sith. That being, of course, was Anakin Skywalker. This was later retconned multiple times, with people explaining that Anakin Skywalker's coming into the galaxy was not a result of the tampering of the Sith, but rather a much more ancient prophecy, and was the literal fate of the Force itself. Many people not liking the idea that Palpatine and Plagueis were directly responsible for the birth of the Chosen One. When Disney took over the franchise in 2012, they did away with this idea entirely. The idea that Palpatine was responsible for the destruction of the Sith, with Disney even coming out multiple times saying that it was not in fact Palpatine or Plagueis that resulted in the birth of Anakin, but rather again that his birth was a result of the cosmic and the living force coming together to create a being that would destroy the Sith, as a result of the Sith meddling with the Force for centuries prior to Anakin's birth, a being made of the Force for revenge against the Sith, because of the fact that the Sith decided to dominate the Force rather than follow it religiously like the Jedi. This is why when in the Vader's Castle series, when it was implied that Palpatine was directly responsible for the birth of Anakin, that many fans were quite confused. For several months, this image actually caused many people to believe that it was in fact Palpatine that was responsible for the birth of Anakin. And more than this, that unlike Legends continuity, he actually did it on purpose, in hopes that potentially he could create a vessel that he could one day inhabit, a vessel born purely out of the power of the Force that could achieve a power that even Palpatine could not comprehend. This was the most popular fan theory at the time. The idea that not only was Palpatine Anakin's father, but that he created Anakin intentionally, and that Anakin was not some will of the Force, but rather the will of Sidious himself, essentially making Palpatine Anakin's father. This would later be debunked though by the illustrator and the writer of the Vader's Castle series, coming out publicly and explaining that this was not their intention, that they did not want to illustrate with this image that Palpatine was responsible for the birth of Anakin, and that fans simply interpreted it this way. That being Disney's official response on the matter, that again, Palpatine is not Anakin's father, as was confirmed by several different sources at Lucasfilm. However, today, thanks to the Star Wars Archives book, we actually have the original plan of George Lucas spelled out for us, and it does explain exactly who in Lucas's mind Anakin's father is. In the Star Wars Archives book, it explains that George Lucas's plan was to have Palpatine and Plagueis be responsible for the birth of Anakin, and that it was going to be the big ultimate reveal that Palpatine is Anakin's father. During the production of the prequels, this was always going to be the established plan, although when Revenge of the Sith came into production, George Lucas decided not to spell it out exactly, but rather to imply it, which is essentially what the opera scene is in Revenge of the Sith. It is in fact implying that Palpatine did make Anakin. George Lucas decided to confirm this in expanded works, but did not want to come right out and say it in the Revenge of the Sith movie. But according to this, it was George Lucas's plan to make Palpatine Anakin's father, and to have him be responsible for the conception of Anakin through the Force. Again, just to make it clear, this is not the canon answer, and according to canon, Anakin is not the son of Palpatine. It is compelling though that this was Lucas's original design, and idea for how Palpatine was going to create Anakin. There's a whole lot more information revealed to us in the Star Wars Archives books, including who the main villains of the sequel trilogy were going to be. So if you guys enjoyed this video and would like to hear more about the original plan for the sequel trilogy and more from Lucas, a like would be appreciated. That just lets me know that you guys want to see more from this book. But what are your thoughts on this, and the thoughts that George Lucas did actually want Palpatine to be the father of Anakin in his original Star Wars prequel trilogy? trilogy. Do you like the idea of Disney going back and retconning this and having this not be the case? Or do you agree with George Lucas, the creator, and think that this was a fun thematic idea? Whether or not which side of the argument you fall on, I still think it's interesting that the creator wanted Palpatine to be Anakin's father, and to have him be responsible for his destruction indirectly. As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching the channel. May the Force be with you, and have a great day.